Hello class, this is Norman Stevens. I want to review Chapter 6, Jobs and Unemployment, so I'll go over the chapter checkpoint on page 160. You can pull out your textbook and follow along if you like, and if you have any questions about these questions, or if my answers aren't clear, please let me know. The questions begin with a description of 4 different households. I'll read the descriptions. Household 1. Candy worked 20 hours last week setting up her internet shopping business. The rest of the week she completed application forms and attended 2 job interviews. Husband Jerry worked 40 hours at his job at GM. Daughter Meg, a student, worked 10 hours at her weekend job at Starbucks. Household 2. Joey, a full-time bank clerk, was on vacation. Wife, Serena, who wants a full-time job, worked 10 hours as a part-time checkout clerk. Household 3. Ari had no work last week, but was going to be recalled to his regular job in 2 weeks. Partner Costa, after months of searching for a job and not being able to find one, has stopped looking and will go back to school. The last household, Household 4. Mimi and Henry are retired. Son Hank is a professional artist who painted for 12 hours last week and sold 1 picture. Then the question is, classify each of the 10 people into the labor market category used by the BLS. Who are part-time workers and who are full-time workers? Of the part-time workers, who works part-time for economic reasons? So for the first household, Candy is employed because she worked for more than 15 hours at her family business. Jerry is employed because he worked full-time at General Motors. Their 17-year-old daughter, Meg, is employed because she worked for more than 1 hour as a paid employee. All 3 are in the labor force and in the working age population. Joey is employed because he is temporarily absent from his job. Serena is employed because she worked for more than 1 hour as a paid employee. Both are in the labor force and in the working age population. Ari is unemployed because he is waiting to be recalled to his job. Ari is in the labor force and in the working age population. Costa is in the working age population but is not in the labor force, so Costa is a marginally attached worker. Mimi and Henry are in the working age population but are not in the labor force. Hank is not in the labor force. He is not employed because he worked for less than 15 hours in the family business. And he is not unemployed because he made no effort to find employment and was not waiting to be recalled to a job. Hank is not in the labor force, but he is in the working age population. Candy, Meg, and Serena are part-time workers. Jerry and Joey are full-time workers. Candy and Serena are part-time for economic reasons. Question 2 asks to calculate the unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate and compare these rates with those in the United States in 2011. The labor force is 6 people, and 1 of the people is unemployed. The unemployment rate is the number of people unemployed divided by the labor force multiplied by 100. 1 divided by 6 times 100, which is 16.7%. The unemployed rate is higher than the U.S. unemployment rate, which was 9.1% in August 2011. The labor force is 6 people, and the working age population is 10 people. The labor force participation rate is the labor force divided by the working age population multiplied by 100. 6 divided by 10 times 100, which is 60%. Question 3 asks, give 2 examples of people who work part-time for economic reasons and 2 examples of people who work part-time for non-economic reasons. So some examples. Sam is an associate at J.C. Penney and would like to work 40 hours per week. However, sales at J.C. Penney are slow, and so he is scheduled to work only 25 hours per week. Maria is a server at Olive Garden and would like to work at least 40 hours per week. But Maria is scheduled for only 20 hours per week because Olive Garden's sales are down. Both Sam and Maria work part-time for economic reasons. Further examples, Mike is a student who wants to work 20 hours per week at Cost Cutters Hairstyling so that he can attend class and study. Cost Cutters schedules him for 20 hours per week. Lori is partially retired and wants to work only 15 hours per week at Walgreens so that she may spend most of her time with her spouse. Walgreens schedules Lori for 15 hours per week. Both Mike and Lori work part-time for non-economic reasons. Question 4. Explain the relationship between the percentage of employed workers who have part-time jobs and the business cycle. When the economy goes into a recession, the percentage of workers who have part-time jobs for economic reasons rises. When the economy goes into an expansion, the percentage of workers who have part-time jobs for economic reasons falls. The percentage of workers who have part-time jobs for non-economic reasons does not change through the business cycle. Because one component of part-time workers rises in a recession and falls in an expansion, the total percentage of workers who have part-time jobs rises in a recession and falls in an expansion. Question 5. Distinguish among the three types of unemployment: frictional, structural, and cyclical. Provide an example of each type of unemployment in the United States today. Frictional unemployment is unemployment that arises from normal labor turnover, from people entering and leaving the labor force, and from the ongoing creation and destruction of jobs. Structural unemployment is unemployment that arises when changes in technology or international competition change the skills needed to perform jobs or change the location of jobs. Cyclical unemployment is the fluctuating unemployment over the business cycle that increases during a recession and decreases during an expansion. And you can think of cyclical as simply going in cycles. So it changes, it goes up and down over the business cycle. A college student graduating and entering the labor force to look for a job is frictionally unemployed. An assembly worker who is fired when the company moves production to Singapore, and I don't mean to single out Singapore, but just as an example, is structurally unemployed. And an auto worker who is laid off when the economy contracts and Ford's sales slump is cyclically unemployed. Question 6. Describe the relationship between the unemployment rate and the natural unemployment rate as the output gap fluctuates between being positive and being negative. When real GDP is less than potential GDP, so that the output gap is negative, the unemployment rate is above the natural unemployment rate. When real GDP is greater than potential GDP, so that the output gap is positive, the unemployment rate is below the natural unemployment rate. And when real GDP equals potential GDP, so that the output gap is zero, the unemployment rate equals the natural unemployment rate. Questions 7 and 8 asks to use the following information. Headline reads, July unemployment dips in 17 states, rises in 26. Story reads, the Labor Department said that the largest job gains occurred in New York, which added 62,100 jobs, while Minnesota added 10,300 jobs, its first gains in almost a year. Vermont added 900 jobs, but its unemployment rate fell from 7.3 to 6.8%, the biggest drop of all states. Question 7 asks, explain how, other things remaining the same, the increase of 62,100 jobs in New York and of 10,300 in Minnesota changed the number of people employed, the labor force, and the unemployment rate. The increase in the number of jobs means that there was an increase in the number of people employed. If these workers moved from the ranks of the unemployed to the being employed, then the labor force did not change. However, if these workers enter the labor force by accepting jobs, such as college students who graduate and then immediately start work at a job they found while in college, then the labor force increased. In either case, the unemployment rate falls, though it falls by more when the newly employed workers had previously been unemployed. Question 8. Explain why, when Vermont added only 900 jobs, its unemployment fell by more than any other state. Even though Vermont added only 900 jobs, there are two reasons why its unemployment rate fell by more than any other rate. First, Vermont has a small labor force. Because Vermont has a small labor force, even a small change in employment can lead to a large percentage change in the unemployment rate. Second, it's likely the case that some unemployed people withdrew from the labor force in Vermont by leaving the ranks of the unemployed and becoming discouraged workers. Once again, because Vermont has a small labor force and a small number of unemployed workers, even a small increase in the number of people withdrawing from the labor force and becoming discouraged workers leads to a large percentage decrease in Vermont's unemployment rate. And if you're curious, you can always run to the map of the United States, take a look at the map and say, yes, Vermont is a relatively small state. I hope that helps. Thanks very much for listening. Please let me know if you have any questions.